If you could, just for the record, could you please state your name and where you live?
Roy J. Reynolds.
Okay. And your birth date again, please.
Is September the 11th, 1919.
Okay. We'll just get started. You told me that you enlisted in 1936.
Yeah.
Could you tell me why you decided to enlist at that time? Or what sort of motivations you had?
Things were tough at that time, and I decided to join the service to get some kind of employment. Mm-hmm. And so that was the main reason, that because I was home and I was my father had been killed in an automobile wreck. So
what did the rest of your family think when you enlisted? Were they supportive?
Yeah, they were really supportive. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. What did you do from 36 to 1940? What was your military specialty, and where were you stationed, things like that?
I was at Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, and then World War II started, and I went to Camp Rucker, Alabama, and they formed the 746 Tank Battalion, and we trained there. And we went to Europe on the Queen Mary, and we trained in Europe also, and we were the assault troops. A D-Day on Normandy. So we were practicing with the of just exactly what we would be facing when we got to Europe, and we were supposed to have, well, we left Torquay, and we were supposed to have landed on the 5th, but it was so rough that they decided that they'd wait another day and land on the 6th.
What was going through your mind when they canceled the invasion for that day?
Well, nothing. It was just another day. Another day of waiting to get off of the LST. So we went across the channel, and we were pulling a small boat with bandoliers on them, I believe. The engineer, there was a lieutenant engineer with a couple of men, and they were to blow up any obstacles on the beach that so that we could get our tanks in. So we turned the but when we got there, the Navy was bombarding everything with their guns, and there was one particular ship that had rockets on it, and it looked like there was just hundreds of them going off at one time. So we landed on the beach, and you have to get off the beach. The beach is hot. People are dying, getting killed, and so forth. So you have to get off the beach. So we got off the beach, and we were fighting for St. Marie-Glisse. We were supposed to relieve the paratroopers in St. Marie-Glisse, the 101st and the 82nd Airborne Division. We were fighting with as supporting armor for the 4th Infantry Division. Paratroopers were laying out, they were out of the trees, hanging out of trees and everything else, with their throats cut and everything else. And I asked this one paratrooper, I said, what's this German soldier doing here? He says, well, I've shot him in the foot, so he can't run. He can't get away. And then from St. Marie-Glisse, we were fighting for Moneyburg. And they pulled us out of Moneyburg and shot us into Cherbourg. We took Cherbourg, and then when they put us to the right in Carentan with the 83rd Infantry Division. And from there they had to break through, and we went into, we thought we were going into Paris, but they pulled us to the right, and we went around Paris, and they had some troops that just come in from the States. They used them to parade in Paris. Let's see. We had lost so many people and tanks that I was the intelligence sergeant, and I was put in as a tank commander, and it seemed like every night the Germans would surround the engineers who were on the front line, plugging up the holes. And every morning we'd have to go with our tanks and go through the forest and relieve the engineers. Then we started through Belgium. We were fighting through Belgium, and I had 3 tanks under my command, and we were supporting the 9th Recon outfit. We were way out in front of the division, like a sore thumb. And we ran into, at one time, we ran into about a battalion of Germans who ran into some woods. We surrounded the woods with our tanks and armored cars and so that they had with us, and we opened up the firing and just shot them as far as we could. I guess I shot a couple of boxes through the anti-aircraft gun, and we stopped there, and we went into the next town. They could hear us firing, and they all came out, putting flowers all over the tanks and everything else. They were so glad to see us. And from there, they sent me to C Company as the first sergeant. I stayed with C Company a couple of months, I guess, and then they transferred me to headquarters as the first sergeant of headquarters. We were the first separate tank unit across the Rhine River. Captain Asher K. Pay was killed on the Rhine River. And we've went on up, and we was on the Elbe River when we were waiting for the Russians to come down. And I went across the Elbe River and came back, and because that was the territory that the Russians were supposed to occupy. Then after that, they signed the armistice and so forth, and they said that the ones with the highest points would be the first transferred back to the States. Well, my unit at that time had put over 277 days in combat. And I was one of the first men to be sent back to the States. I rode a stretcher from Babberg, Germany to Le Havre, France. And came back, and I was discharged in New York.
If it's all right, I'd like to go back and ask a couple of questions about what you've talked about so far. Go back to the very beginning. You were in service during Pearl Harbor. Do you remember where you were and what you were doing?
Yeah. I was in G Company, 34th Infantry Regiment at Fort Meade, Maryland. Mm-hmm.
What did you and your fellow soldiers think about that when you got the word?
We knew that there was going to be a war, and the captain, I forget his name now, but he cried. He knew how serious and the number of men that would die in a war.
Before Pearl Harbor, were y'all thinking, with events the way they were in Europe, that there was going to be a war that y'all would be involved in, that the United States would be involved in?
A war in Europe?
Yeah. Did you think that eventually the United States was going to have to get into it?
No, we didn't at that time. Not until after Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
While you were overseas, I know you went to England first to do some of the training. How much contact did you have with friends and family back home? I'm assuming it was just letters.
That's all letters. Yeah.
Were there a lot of letters?
There was a few, not too many. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The training that you received in Europe, and in your time previous, starting in '36, do do you feel that it prepared you for what came after the invasion? Do you think the training was good, or did you have to learn most of it the hard way?
Well, the training was good, but you see, I was the intelligence sergeant, and I wasn't in the tanks at that time. I was plotting on the maps and stuff like that as to what position we'd take and all that stuff. But I was prepared to, like I say, they put me in as a tank commander, and you learn right quick.
When did they stick you in a tank? Was it before the invasion or after?
It was after the invasion. Yeah, we'd lost so many men and tanks. We lost over 40 medium tanks in combat.
Just so I know, the tanks you're talking about, are they all Shermans?
Yeah.
All Shermans?
Yeah, well, some of them are light tanks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. With a 75 millimeter gun, we got one company, a company, right before the Rhine River. We got a company of 76 millimeter tanks with a gun with a 76 millimeter read on it. They gave them all to A Company, and they kept A Company in reserve. They didn't want to put them up on the line and lose them all often. So they kept the B Company and C Company with the 75 millimeter guns on the, and the first time that I saw them, I thought they were German tanks.
I know there's been a lot written about our tanks, the United States tanks, versus the tanks the Germans had. Would you care to elaborate a little bit on your experiences relating to that? Just soldier's view.
The German tank could hit one of our tanks. It'd go in the front end, come out the back, and looking for another one. We had paint remover tank guns. You hit the tank and it'd ricochet off. And you can imagine what was going through the minds of the tankers that had to use them. And we said at that time, if the American mothers knew what we were fighting with, they would storm Washington.
How did you deal with that? Did you just overwhelm them with numbers?
Superiority in numbers. That's the only reason that they beat the Germans, is superiority in numbers. They were good fighters. They had the equipment. They were trained fighters. They would not give up. There at the right of Carentan, we were fighting with the 83rd Infantry Division, and we were up against the 6th SS Parachute outfit from Germany, and they would not surrender. You had to kill them.
While we're on the topic of Germans, while you were in the war, how did you feel about Germans? Were they just the enemy? Did you hate them? How did you feel towards them?
I felt that any German that came out in front of us, if he was knee-high on up, he was out there for one purpose, and that's to hurt some doughboy or kill somebody. So if he's out there, we're going to shoot him. That's what I thought of him.
Okay, good. About the D-Day landings. Um, could you tell me, in talking to some other veterans, it's amazing the breadth of emotion that can run through. Could you tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind as the ships were approaching the shore?
Well, I really didn't get engrossed in anything except just watching the shells go off, and as I was in the boat, and you're not actually in the fighting, but when they let the ramps down on the boat and we got down, you could see the dead men laying down, and then you knew that this was for keeps. This was not play. This was for keeps. They didn't pick anybody up for a few days after the war started. There was no grave registration people there. We moved in, and then a few days later, they had picked up the dead. And these hedgerows are small. And I looked in one hedgerow, and they had dead American soldiers lying like cordwood. They were 6 foot high and maybe 50 foot long, and many, many of them like that.
When as you got further in from the beaches, did you find that life got easier or harder?
You die 1,000 deaths when you're in that situation that we were in. I ran into General Teddy Roosevelt, and he says, "How are you getting along, son?" And I looked at him and I said, "Fine, General, fine." And I was scared to death. He died up there with the 83rd Infantry Division. They were losing so many troops. I don't know if he died of a heart attack or if he died by shrapnel or something like that, because he would go right up on the front with the troops.
As the war went on and you got closer, and you said you'd were at Remagen, and you took your with the battalion, you went across everything and got to the Elbe, and the armistice was signed. How did you feel when you got the word that Germany had surrendered?
Great, yeah. Well, we knew the war was over when we reached the Elbe River, because we had stopped there and there was nothing going on. We had defeated the Germans, and we're just waiting on the Russians to come down. We knew that the war was over.
What did you think about the Russians at that time?
We didn't think much of them.
Why not, if I may ask?
I really don't know. I don't know. They had a lot of battles that, but I have no idea. But we didn't care too much for the Russians.
Was there ever a time in Europe that your unit specifically, or you yourself personally, ever suffered from the lack of supplies?
No, no.
So you always had everything that y'all needed. How about what we're talking about, our different enemies and allies? Did you ever have any interaction with the British?
No,
British forces?
no.
Okay. When the war ended, you were very elated, went back home. When you got home, did you find it difficult to reintegrate into society?
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about why and how, and what kind of job you got afterwards, if you did get anything or something like that?
I started to work for the railroad, and I didn't care for that. So I re-enlisted in the Army, and I was advisor for the National Guard. And during the Korean War, I received a direct appointment as a second lieutenant. And then I was with the 1st Armored Division in Fort Hood, Texas, during the Korean War. I mean, at the start of the Korean War. And then they sent me to Chiang Kai-shek as an advisor at the Armored School from 51 to 53. Then I came back to the States, and I was assigned to Fort Rucker, Alabama. And I was in a tank company, and the G4 of the regiment, or the battalion, or division, called me and wanted me to come up and see him, so I did. And he wanted me to go down and look at the procurement office, because they were losing the procurement officer. So, and he wanted to sign me down as the procurement officer. So I came back and I told him, I says, I still don't want it. I would not like to be the procurement officer. So he called me up another day, a little later, and asked me to go down and take another look. So I did, and he came back, and I said, well, I still don't want it. He said, well, you've got the job. So I was the procurement officer at Fort Rucker, the Army Aviation School, from 53 to 56. Then I went to Europe, and they found out I was in procurement, so they assigned me as the procurement officer at Stuttgart, Germany. And I stayed there until '59, when I came back to the States.
Did during your time in China, were you assigned directly to Chiang Kai-shek, or just his
Well,
armored school?
We were in Formosa. China China had kicked Chiang Kai-shek out of China, and we were the first American troops sent back to Chiang Kai-shek since that happened. And that's about all I know about other than the fact that I was there from 51 to 53.
Why did you join the Army as opposed to any other branches of service?
I really couldn't tell you because it just happened to be a recruiter there, I guess, that was looking for warm bodies at that time.
Let me ask you a little bit about, again, the years after the war. How often after you got home did you think about your time in service in Europe?
Every day.
Good, bad?
I couldn't talk about it for a long time. It cracks me up.
Well, what made you generous enough to talk to us today?
Well, I think that I'm getting over the things that I went through and saw, because it was so hard on you mentally that it's hard to describe that.
The United States did pay an awful price in World War II. In your opinion, was it worth it?
Yes, it sure was. Yeah. Because Hitler was, he was a tyrant. He was, and Stalin was no better. So I think that Hitler was a madman.
Why is it important that we remember today what your generation did during World War II?
Well, just to remember the sacrifices that were made by the individuals who were involved, that we still have a great country, one of the biggest, largest, and greatest countries in the world that the world has ever known. I don't know, it's hard to describe just exactly how you do feel and what has come out of the sacrifice that the people have made in World War II.
There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm sure yours, that it's important that we do remember this sort of thing. What do you think is the best way we can maintain the memory of those sacrifices?
I guess by talking to people and recording it and maintaining and the weapons and things that they had at that time. But I don't think that we should forget the great sacrifices that those people have made, and we should when the holidays that are you know, the holidays that they have for armistice days and stuff like
Memorial Day.
yeah, that those are the days that they can remember, and that the sacrifices that were made by the people that were in the different wars.
What about you personally? For you personally, was it worth what you had to give up, and did it make you a different person, a better person?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would hate to do it again, but if it came to it, I would. I would defend this country in any war that was declared by the President of the United States.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about or would like to mention?
You know, the glider planes that came in there in Normandy. I went up and looked at inside of a few of the gliders, and the men had never even unbuckled their safety belts. The Germans had gone up one side and down the other with their burp guns and killed every one of them. That's, I guess that's about the extent of it, really. It's hard to describe just what you went through.
I can only imagine. I'll have only one more question to ask, and this is sort of another retrospective. With recent talk and controversies about this subject, dropping the atomic bombs on Japan. How did you feel about that at the time, and has your opinion of it changed?
I felt great. It shortened the war. It saved a lot of men's lives, and I felt great.
Good. All right. Well, like I said, unless you have anything to add, I think we'll wrap it up.
Good.
And I'd like to thank you very much for coming out.
Okay.
All right.